let people know we're running about 5 minutes behind, if that's okay. Thank you. Do you want to have a date? Oh, he was the only one then. So, I did the wrong one. This is very much. We are not going on. Yeah, I thought I just was so I think it's got an issue. So that would be 5. Sadia had 5. So that and then we'll finish at 5:30. And then we'll throw it open. And also we get questions from the people who are very good at speaking now. Writing questions for law. Ready to begin? Okay. First of all, welcome everybody. I'm inviting you to this seminar series, which has been called Re-examining the Meaning of Learning in an Uncertain World. I'm Kathy Silva. I'm in the Department of Education here, and it's my pleasure. This is my second of the seminars that I've chaired. So the plans for the evening is the main talk will be given by Sadia Bhutta, who is from the Institute of Education, Aga Khan University in Karachi. And Sadia will talk for about half an hour, but she will take as her example the Institute of Education and the work that they do in Karachi. We'll then go over to Hubert Ertl, who's in the Department of Education at the University of Oxford, and Hubert is going to take Sadia's very micro look at one institute and how it works in Pakistan, and put it in a slightly broader, more international context, so moving out broader. And Hubert will be no more, he says no more than 10 minutes, but he might put a few questions back to Sadia, and then Sadia will have about 5 minutes. So altogether, this should not take more than 50 minutes, and then we will open it up to the audience. But it's such a small group, if you have a burning question for clarification after either Sadia or Hubert, I think we'll take a clarification question. So it's my pleasure to introduce Sadia Bhutta, who did her DPhil here in the Department of Education and Green College, and was one of our stunning students. So we're very happy to welcome you back, Sadia.
Is it good afternoon? Because in my brain it's good night. So good afternoon, assalamu alaikum. That's a prayer for you in this very good afternoon. As you can see, the topic is, and actually thank you very much for inviting. I am a bit nervous and scared because I'm surrounded by teachers there and here and colleagues. Please, my teachers, don't look at me for the first 5 minutes, then I'll be okay. Okay. So, re-examining the meaning of in this uncertain world. When I was looking at that, I thought, were there any time in the past when there was world we were certain about? Never. It's always uncertain, right? It's only that we have now realized that it's uncertain. I don't know what's its definition. And under that, we will be looking at universities learning from the past for the future, where there are some things we have to bring from the past and try in the future, and there are some things where we need to change. And within that, I will be looking at a micro example, as Kathy put it, a new catalyst of change in the old world, an example of Institute of Education in Pakistan, which is one of the campuses, one of the entity of a bigger university, which is the Aga Khan University. And as compared to Oxford, it's just a child. We have just finished our 25 years. The Institute of Education has not turned 25 yet. So it's very young. So focus of the presentation, we will start from the bigger look at the Aga Khan University. How is it trying to make a difference? Within that, of course, the example of Institute for Educational Development, which is a in-service institute for teacher education and striving to improve landscape of education in Pakistan and the region. Then, of course, you would like to see some glimpses from the IED's classrooms. IED is Institute for Educational Development. From now on, we will use the word IED. And then, of course, all these things are not possible if we don't have mechanism put in place for quality assurance. And that's our new development. We will look at that. For that, let's watch a brief video to... Okay, it will work. To see what the Aga Khan University does in the region.
How does the Aga Khan University make an impact on our troubled world? By serving those outside its walls and tackling the causes of poverty and despair. By never compromising on quality and by nurturing the leaders of tomorrow and moulding them to serve not themselves but mankind.
The Aga Khan University's focus is on developing leaders of the future who have the vision to be able to address the issues that affect our community.
It's really a world-class institution with world-class facilities and educators and researchers there. But yet they're living in an environment where problems are right on their doorstep that they're trying to solve.
We were just amazed, really, at the impact that the graduates from the Aga Khan University have made nationally and internationally.
The university's students are chosen strictly on merit and not on their religious or ethnic background or their ability to pay. But they are expected to make a difference. As well as developing the leaders of tomorrow, the Aga Khan University conducts cutting-edge research that matters. With its laboratories and scientists in Asia and Africa, the university has a unique capacity to find solutions to the problems that face the developing world. The students at the Aga Khan University receive a world-class education, but AKU's Institutes for Educational Development are improving teaching outside their walls as well, in both South Asia and East Africa. Whether it's in Tanzania or the remote mountains of northern Pakistan, AKU's professional development centres are intellectual lifelines for teachers in state schools, who are often poorly trained. The university is also trying faculty show teachers and principals how to improve the classroom environment and to use more interactive methods of teaching.
Reaction, the products are calcium chloride, carbon dioxide in water. She totally changed. We dilute. She teach us everything with experiment.
In my mind, Aga Khan University is now one of the leaders in teacher development school improvement. Full stop. Despite very difficult conditions, they nonetheless feel that they need to achieve a level of performance that would be commensurate with any intensive program of this kind anywhere in the world.
The university's bold agenda is about to be extended further. Visionary new faculties of arts and science in Pakistan and Tanzania will imbue students with an ethos of service and global citizenship. Nursing education will be expanded in Syria and Egypt. And there will be graduate professional schools in disciplines central to the problems facing the developing world.
We have the unique opportunity to enable our students to grow into global citizens with a much broader perspective on the challenges that face the world today. And that understanding, I think, can only help make the world a much safer place.
As the Aga Khan University expands its efforts to make a difference around the world, it will abide by the vision that has survived the test of time. That access to quality higher education is an essential building block for tolerant, stable, and prosperous societies, and that it is only by working together across continents and cultures that we can solve the problems that threaten our fragile world.
Okay, so that was our past and our future, where we are working with 2,500 plus students, 13,500 plus alumni, 13,000 plus staff and faculty in 3 continents around the world. So that's our reach. These are our pillars, that you work for quality education, which is accessible to those who are out of reach, as well as those are in reach, of course, and it's relevant, and of course all that is done to make an impact. So those 4 pillars, actually we work on that. Within the Aga Khan University, we have 2 institutes for educational development. We are the bigger sister or brother in Pakistan, and our younger sister or brother is in Dar es Salaam, Tanzania. We offered graduate programs, and we established in 1993, as you can see. These are the programs we offer. The first 3 are graduate programs, and then followed by advanced diploma in education, certificate in education, and short courses. The advanced diploma and certificate, in the past we have one-shot programs, but with time, as we needed, based on the need of the society or our audience, we have changed it to field-based certificate in education and advanced diploma. So the teacher can stay in school, they can come for face-to-face program, and they can go back to their schools to teach again. And then we have short courses, for example, ranging from, the duration is from 3 days to, for example, 15 days courses on topics such as a teaching strategy to leadership and management, from early childhood to higher education, all topics which are actually shared by the teachers in schools or the leadership. So this is our story of programs through which we try or strive to improve the quality of education, not only in Pakistan, but of course in the region as well, by developing exemplary leaders as classroom teachers, as well as school principals and head of the departments for educational change. With that, of course, research is our uniqueness in our institutes, where high quality research is produced to generate knowledge, which impact, practice, and policy. And then implementing innovative and contextually relevant school improvement programs right at the north of Pakistan and south of Pakistan as well, where we are, hard to access areas. Through that, some numbers. Actually, our graduates are more than 50% are females, if you are impressed by that. 34,000 plus teacher educators are trained by now, and 2,000 schools have been impacted through various programs, including our graduate programs and projects, and 150 plus research projects have informed the teaching practices across the country. This is our second aspect after teaching, which is outreach. As you can see, the upper three circles are about our PDCs, Professional Development Centers, in the north and in Chitral, which are in the northern part of Pakistan, mountainous areas, and Professional Development Center Karachi actually lies in ID, or ID lies in Professional Development Center of Karachi. And we also have educational development projects. Through all these four arms, we try to serve the underserved areas through teaching and research. Research. What do we do in research? We study issues ranging from practical problems to those which impact policy. And it ranges from early childhood to higher education. 4 different subject areas, which are core subject in schools, are focused: science education, maths education, social studies, and languages. And along with that, we have leadership strand as well. And gender and health education are cross-cutting themes. These are some, of course, as compared to this big university, which is almost 100 years old or more than that, we have these publications, 150 plus research projects, through which we have produced 160 plus peer-reviewed journal articles and 120 plus book chapters, and our 6 books are in pipeline as well. And 23 national and international conferences. We just have our 10th international conference in 2015. And these are some of the examples we have impacted through our research on policy. For example, our northern province, their educational strategy and their monitoring and supervision framework for government school were informed through the research. There was a research which was carried out in the Aga Khan Education Service, Pakistan, because there were some grievances from teachers that their compensation and career ladder is not very good. So we have done a study, and we have just finished our post-study as well. This was the pre-study. Based on that baseline, their compensation and career schemes are improved. Then we have also contributed to national education policy in textbooks and also professional standards for Pakistan, which have just been developed. And these are some utilization of our research work, which you can read. Okay. That was the research till, we are still doing that, and that's included in that. But there was one gap. We did not have lots of quantitative studies, and people were asking us, where are your numbers? Where is your school improvement impact? You claim that you do all that classroom, participatory teaching, but where is the impact? So when we came for PhD, that was, or DPhil here, that was one of the kind of demands, that we have to learn those methods. So we went back, and in 2006, we started, or the seed was sown for quantitative large-scale studies. So designing large-scale study on paper was easy, but when you actually do it, it was not that easy. I presented, I think, the first paper in 2007 or 8 here, when we actually conceptualized that study, because we started from kind of scratch where there was no tools available. You can design a study, but you needed tools which were validated. Then we developed some assessment tool, and gradually we started developing with our students who were doing masters those development tools as well. Based on that development tools, now we were ready to do some impact assessments to see, are we really making a difference? And when we did that, people started coming to us to help them develop evaluation framework for their school. For example, there is a Pakistan-based NGO, the Citizen Foundation, who came to us and asked us to develop an evaluation framework. So we did a nationwide study on 65 schools, 65 schools, 3,000 plus children, not very big study, moderately large scale study, and 300 teachers. So that was one of the trials to develop, to use our tools which are developed specifically for our own graduates. We tried on them. And then impact evaluation at national level we did for them. Currently, we are working on another project, and many projects, but this is one of the very important projects that where we claim that our graduates, when they come out, as you have also seen in the video, watched in the video, that they are equipped with various generic skills, including critical thinking and creative thinking. Okay, but where is the proof? Where is the evidence? So for that evidence, we are working with HECO, Higher Education Quality Council for Ontario, to develop tools for critical thinking. We are in the process. We have developed the first draft of rubric, which will be validated now on a bigger sample. So that's a kind of short story of our large-scale studies, still in its nascent stage, but we are working on that. Okay. Kathy, this is just to show off that I can make drafts. Okay. So as a result of that impact study, we have found that there is an impact of our graduates both in Karachi and Gilgit, but in Gilgit we did not find that in science, but in maths, but not a very big effect size. But in Karachi, the overall maths performance is not very good, but mathematics difference is larger as compared to science in Karachi. That's one of the results of our impact study, that our graduates, where they are teaching, are better. Their students have produced better learning outcome. And that was not RCT, that was a quasi-experiment. We matched schools in group with the other schools. That was the only possibility. And I can present another 2 hours on that. There was another study where we looked at the impact of a 7 years long program after 4 years to see that they claim that they have done a good job in improving teachers. So this was a 3-point observational scale, which was based on my doctoral thesis, which was 7 points, reduced it to 3 points. And there were only 13 items to look at various types of interaction in the classroom. As you can see, the physical setup of both STEP is the intervention class and non-STEP is non-intervention class or comparison class, not the control class. They are similar. Given that situations were same, the intervention classes were better with the large or medium effect size in most of the cases. Okay, if this is the case, what do our graduates do in our classrooms? Let's just, how many minutes do I have?
You have at least 10 minutes, maybe
10 minutes,
15.
okay.
Take your time.
Right. So that was for kind of a cyclic process, as you know, experiential learning called cycle. Try to put in that how the teachers go through different processes, and in the end, of course, the end product is go and teach your own students. So, but to learn this science and this arts, you can't say that I have learned it. Of course, people are praising that you are doing very well, you are the Institute of Education in this region, fine. But for example, when I did my PhD from here, I went back, I thought, finito. Now I don't need to learn anything, I'm a teacher, right? But after 1 or 2 or 3 years, you feel like you need to learn something more. Or if somebody tells you that do you know this and you don't know, you actually need to know more. So for continuous development, of course, you need some mechanism put in place, which is of course there from the beginning. But in 2013, the idea of network of quality teaching and learning was born. And these networks were established with this aim to support excellence, which is our first and foremost goal for academic programs, for, of course, to improve students' learning outcome. These two networks, and under teaching and learning network, there's another network, blending and digital learning, through which almost all faculty has to go through a professional development program. And by the way, me, who is the least count of this panel in terms of digital learning, have also gone through this project. But don't look at me, because I might not be that good outcome of that, not an exemplary outcome, but have gone through that course, which was a blended mode of code, and as a result of that have redesigned a course which was taught across continent. That was a very good experience. So to meet the 21st century challenges, of course, this was one of the needs we have to do. Number two, of course, this is an educational development where I come from, but we also work for nurses and doctors. And as in the world, I mean, this is not a unique thing for us, that doctors and nurses, they finish their course, they are doctors and nurses, they come back to the university, set up, and they are expected to teach without any training or without any professional development in teacher education. So they teach, but the students are not satisfied. So based on that, just recently, we have launched another faculty development program where 9 faculty members were developed through a faculty development program, a very rigorous workshop. You might think that's 3 days, but it's 3 days multiplied by a year, because that was really, really rigorous. And now that 9 faculty members have a responsibility to do that professional development for the other faculty members, including doctors, nurses, and IED. So far, we have done almost 53 faculty members are trained by these 9 faculty members. And this is one of the courses which would tell you that how these faculty members feel when they come for this training. 20 years experience, I already know everything. Why should I come for this 3 days course? But when they come and go out, they actually realized, and don't worry about these BOPs, this is just a lesson planning model for which we can have another 3-day workshop, right? If it's allowed by, it's allowed, right? We can do it here as well, okay. Right. Okay. And I would like to end on this quote. The true for the past and valid for the future is this, that who dares to teach must never cease to learn. And we are very happy to have someone else here who can also answer your question on quality assurance. Director, Quality Network and Network of Teaching and Learning, Dr. Tashmin Kamis. She's sitting here quietly, to whom I said that don't look at me for 5 minutes, these 2 people. So then I gain my confidence. And I think that's the end. Okay.
We will have 1 minute if there's clarification, something that you didn't know. Good. And I'm remembering Ashmita is in charge of all of our online, so we haven't forgot you, and I hope they're sending questions in to Ashmita. So we're going to turn to Hubert, because as I say, this is a micro case study. How can one university, one institute for education development, what are its goals within the city, the country, and the region? But we asked Hubert to kind of put some of this into the broader, more international perspective, and we've given him 10 minutes, but you can have a little bit more if you'd like.
Thank you. So, I'll come here. Well, thank you very much, Sadia, for your presentation. I should say that I'm not an expert on education in the region you're coming from, nor at all. So this comes really from a very sort of general higher education background, but also from a background of having received teacher training myself in the German context, so in a completely different model. So that's where I'm coming from. So excuse me if the sort of issues I raise seem slightly removed from what you were talking about. I hope that it can still feed into a discussion amongst all of us. So the first thing I usually do when I learn about a new higher education system, new to me, a new type of institution and so on, I usually ask myself, where does it fit in terms of diversification of higher education? So there was a sociologist in the German context whose name is quite well known in the higher education literature and beyond. It's Ulrich Teichler. I'm sure you've heard and probably met him. So he's distinguishing in very simple terms, but very helpful terms, horizontal diversification of higher education institutions and vertical differentiation. So vertical means there is a hierarchy in the higher education setup of a system. There are sort of elite providers, there are mass providers, and things in between. And the horizontal dimension would be different institutions offer different kinds of education or have different missions and so on, but they aren't distinguished in terms of a hierarchy of status and so on. So it strikes me that the Aga Khan University and your institute particularly fits in a way an elite model, because clearly it tries to improve the situation in Pakistan and in the other countries. It's clearly a well-known provider and has been for a number of years now. You've got the assessment from people in the US and Canada praising the quality that is offered and so on. I only need to look at the campus surrounding in the film, and also the teaching context with experiential learning, small groups, very personalized, which tells me, okay, these are all characteristics of an elite provider. At the same time, it has a very particular situation in terms of horizontal differentiation, in terms of really trying to offer something different. And I don't know the Pakistani situation well enough to be able to say different in what ways from the state sector. But I guess that the institute was founded to improve in a situation where educational quality overall isn't very high, and it has developed some very specific approaches in doing that. So horizontally, it's a very interesting example as well. So that's the first point, sort of locating it, and you might want to respond to that and your colleagues as well, to help me and maybe other people as well to learn more about that. Linked to this point about differentiation is a point about access, and you covered that quite nicely in terms of the outreach work that your institute and the university more widely is doing. So, of course, in a situation where you've got a very specific educational offering and you are sort of at the elite end of a spectrum, of course, the question arises, well, how open is this? How accessible is it for people from across the across society, and in a way that reminds me very much of the discussion we have in Oxford and have had for a very long time. So also sort of elite provider, but with certainly the aim to be open for everybody across society. The problem here in Oxford, and I'm not sure how this is in your context, the problem here in Oxford is that we've got merit-based admission system, so that's very, very clear. So we want the best people in terms of academic merit, in terms of knowledge and skills that they bring to the university. How does that work if we know that these high merits, so to speak, are much easier to achieve when you come from certain socioeconomic backgrounds compared with other socioeconomic backgrounds? And I'm just interested in how the Aga Khan University and your institute particularly deals with that. So how diversified is your intake, and what are you trying to do to diversify it more, if that's one of your aims? Okay, the next point then is linked more to the work of the institute, the work on training teachers, further developing teachers while they're already working in classrooms and so on. So that's an interesting model, of course. The group I teach in my master's course, and two people from the course are here today, they get one session only on different models of teacher education, and they get an insight into developments in this country particularly, but then they compare it with other models as well. So what struck me in your presentation is the attempt to bring in-service teachers back to learn, because that's necessary. And the quote you showed shows some of the problems with that, some of the challenges that you have to overcome. And I was also interested in sort of the position of the Institute moving away, as far as I can see, from training teachers directly to, probably in the medium term, to training the trainers. So you probably, as an elite provider, it's quite difficult to be close enough to the field of practice, and you might kind of remove yourself one step, and you train the people who are then working with the practitioners. And again, that reminds me with the situation not only here in Oxford but more widely in the English system, where teacher training, of course, for the last 2 or 3 decades has moved gradually but very certainly away from being university-based to being school-based. And I guess that sort of situation, the reaction of universities then is to remove themselves and start to train the teachers, and that's certainly what our department has started to do, as well as training teachers before they go into schools. In that situation, I think the role of knowledge and the sort of role of practice problems becomes really important, because you can only credibly teach trainers or trainers if you know the practice they are working in. And as you move a step back from that, I think the challenge is still to have enough knowledge of what is really required in classrooms. And I think universities generally are struggling with that, and I wanted to see how you are dealing with that problem. I was struck by some of the clips of classroom situations. I was struck by the sort of interaction that was shown there, the immediate interaction and the reactions of pupils to people coming in from the outside, from an institution they haven't had contact with, and how they sort of take on the new ideas and how they positively reacted to that. So that's very good. The sort of niggling doubt I have is, how well is this working more broadly. Because I think in universities we have problem of trying to do the sort of scholarly academic work, because that's where all our benefits come from. That's where academic careers are made. And of course, on one slide you had all the achievements, the academic achievements of the institute, published papers, research projects, and so on. So you've got that sort of incentive to do more of that and become better at that. On the other hand, you've got sort of practice problems and practice knowledge, which sometimes are not the best starting points for projects that lead to the academic outputs we want to have. So how do you deal with that sort of tension of people like yourself and your colleagues being pushed into the sort of peer-reviewed journal direction, because that's where many of the incentives are, and that's where the next pot of research money will come from, and the push to kind of really look at classroom problems and trying to come up with solutions for these classroom problems, which often means you can only tackle them when you work with the teachers and you sort of trust their practice knowledge and so on. And translating that into the sort of peer-reviewed journal article is a stretch. And I'm not sure whether you found, I mean, I'm sure you've found solutions to that, but is that an issue or not, and how do you deal with that? Would be another question I have. A final point I want to make has to do with the skills side of things. So the sort of teacher training that really provides teachers, be it in-service teachers or pre-service trainees, with a broad knowledge base about the subject they teach, but also in terms of pedagogic knowledge, theories and so on, sociological knowledge about the sort of context their students come from and so on. So you've got that model, and a model that is much more hands-on, and it's all about sort of generic skills in the sense of being able to work with people, to have classroom routines that work, and so on. So again, it's a matter of positioning of an institute like yourselves. Where's the focus? Because you mentioned generic skills and how important they are. On the other hand, from the clips from the classroom, of course, a lot of technical teaching skills that the trainers you have, they also have got that. And I wonder how you get to that situation where you can do both, because I know many systems that really struggle with that. That's
fine.
About
okay. I've taken good notes, Hubert, and I have 5 questions and issues you put to Sadia. I think, why don't I summarize them, because I summarize them very neatly, and why doesn't Sadia take maybe 2 or 3, which she wants to talk about, and then we'll open it, and those, especially those who are online, you may want to pick up some of the themes, but we'll give Sadia the first chance.
Okay.
The first theme was kind of the vertical differentiation and the horizontal differentiation. You might want to tackle that directly, or you might want to interleave that in your answers to other questions. Okay. The second very content theme, which is one that we struggle with here at this university, is access. And how do you reconcile an elite university with the elite standards, with a commitment to giving access to people from all parts of society? So that's the second. The third is the problem of when you're training those who are already working in practice, when in-service teachers go back to learn. It's kind of, what is the role of knowledge? But then there's the new demand on the teacher educator. Do they have sufficient knowledge or relevant knowledge to really offer something supportive and exciting to those who've come back So it really is the tension. And the fourth was, I think, the biggest tension that Hubert and I face in our daily lives, which is the rewards in our system of doing research. All of the rewards are there, and yet daily we face students and the teaching demands. How do you handle that tension? And the fifth one is, do you conceive of yourself or your mission in terms of the broad knowledge base of education, or how do you balance that with generic skills? So there are 5 topics and questions that Hubert has put quite directly to your presentation, and I don't think we want you to do all 5. Do you want to choose 2 or 3 to respond, and then we will open it up? Is that all right, Sadia?
Yes.
Yeah? Okay.
Thank you so much. I was missing that summary for the last 10 years. And that was like another DPhil Viva. I think they asked me 10 questions, you asked me 5 questions. Thank you very much. So that's half of the Viva. But the questions are very interesting. I don't think I'll be able to do justice in this time, but let me try. Let me start with the access to a broader audience. I will take my own example. I come from a background where I can never even dream to come to AKU or the Oxford University. So it's not only, of course it's an elite university, I would say that, I would agree with that, and of course the fee structures are that which is very difficult to be afforded by the people who come from a background like my own. But there are scholarships. For example, in the beginning, our education was almost free. When we come, we have this funding and everything, and we can come and get education. And I even come to Oxford on full scholarship. So I could not afford that, and I am an example sitting here who was educated in the same university which actually go for elites, as you mentioned in horizontal and vertical model. Number 2, though our funding structure is not that strong right now, but still people who are coming from remotest areas like northern part of Pakistan, rural areas of Sindh and rural areas of the province where I come from, Balochistan, we have some scholarship and financial assistance, we call it, where students come, they are given that financial assistance. I mean, teachers, what are they earning? 13,000, 14,000, which is, or maybe now the salary structure is better. Maybe you can translate it into pounds. I don't know how much is pound, maybe into dollars. $500 to, when I did my field work, I think the schools where I went to, they were only earning $1,500 per month. And $1,500 is not $15. $1,500 rupees is $15 per month. So in that structure, of course, they can't even think of coming there. But there are some structures to help them. So those who are bright, even in that socioeconomic status, they cannot afford to come. They are supported because we have those tests. If they qualify that test, they can come here and they are given that support. And we have still so many examples in this cohort where we have 90 students, including MPhil and MID, who are being given support to complete their courses. Number 2, in service teachers, when they go back, do they have sufficient knowledge to support? What was that question?
To the teacher trainers,
Yeah.
it's the challenge of having somebody who really is steeped in practice and has more relevant and more hands-on knowledge than the people who are supposedly teaching them. How do you deal with that?
Yes. So it's a kind of knowledge of, issue of re-entry in the school. So when they are trained here and when they go back to school, that was the question, when they go back to school.
No, it is how do you, the staff at the IED, deal with...
Oh, sorry. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, I got it. It's not that easy as you have seen in that video, of course. Those are the clips from the classroom where you see that interaction and everything. But students are at different levels when they come. And of course, they are at different levels. That's why they come for that training. If all of them are trained, they would not come. And when they go back, of course, they are at different levels, still at different levels. Some of them, when they have completed 2 years, I mean, they have moved a little bit on a 5-point scale. But if some of them have, of course, moved to 3 or 3.5 or 4, it's their acceptability, because capability of learning and skills of learning is, I mean, one thing, but how much they can take with them willingly and put in practice is another thing. So there is a difference, of course, and it's very, very difficult sometimes to keep a balance, to strike a balance in the classroom. For example, in science classroom, I only get 5 or 6 students who get the specialization in science. But when you teach quantitative research, for example, it's not flavor of the month. Because they would say, why on earth are you teaching quantitative research? It's not going to be beneficial in future. And the person who actually says that come back to me 1 month after his MA completion and say, can you help me to develop a project because my institute has asked me to do that. So it is difficult. It's always a dilemma. It's not that easy. But of course, I think it's linked with the third question, which was about publish or perish, that if you don't publish, of course, and again, I am victim of that, my own success. I got these teaching awards for best teaching, thankfully, because I love teaching. But the issue is it's very difficult to strike a balance then between teaching, and that's my weakness as well. It's not only that, I mean, there are people who are teaching very well and they are publishing as well. They strike a balance. They keep 1 day in a week. This is for my publication. No one can even knock at my door. But I think I am, if I take my own example instead of taking any other examples, it is not that easy for me, because when the students come to me, it's very difficult for me to say no, because they need extra help, they need extra support, and that's also related to the other question that they come with a different background. Some people need extra support, so when you give them extra support, you don't have time to publish. So that is an issue, and I acknowledge that. So I'm finished with 3 questions?
Yes,
Okay.
fine.
Half of the Viva is done?
Ashmita, do you have a couple to give us?
Well, I can actually build on one perfectly, just following up on Sadia's last point. This comes from Andy Cunningham. And he talks and he says, so as you mentioned, you received the Best University Teacher Award. So what did this award mean to you, which I think you did talk about, but how do you think we can improve the professional recognition schemes so that we move more towards the quality of teaching that's delivered in higher education versus the dependence on the number of publications, so particularly in Pakistan?
Can I ask for help, Dr. Tashmi? Thank you.
Maybe begin to answer that, and I think it builds on some of the questions you raised. I think there is a realization. I mean, the AKU talks about being research-led but student-centered. And I think more and more there's a realization that whilst AKU may have a niche in terms of research because of our size, the location, the developing world context that we largely work in, we would never compete with a university like this in terms of research outputs. However, there is absolutely no reason why we cannot teach better than Oxford does, if at least not as good as Oxford does. And I think there's a lot of support right from the top to do that. So the networks that Sadia mentioned in the presentation at the end are really set up to look at how do we motivate teachers to be the best teachers that they can, so that they are not divorced from those they're trying to teach. And also recognize and reward that, so that it isn't just a publish-perish culture. And we are actually the first university in the developing world, I understand, that has just become a strategic partner of the Higher Education Academy in the UK, so which you're all very familiar with. So Sadia is just busy, other than doing seminars like this, writing her senior fellowship application for the HEA, in which she has to build in scholarship of teaching and learning reflect on exactly the kind of question you've posed her. What does it mean to get an award, and what is she going to do with that? But as we do that, what we're hoping to do is build in a community of practice across the university around teaching excellence. So we now have a teaching learning strategy that really defines what we mean at AKU, what creates a common understanding around teaching excellence. But in addition, as we develop our pools of fellows and senior fellows, in the, not elitist, but having an elite cadre of faculty who belong to an AKU Teachers Academy, who then will support other faculty to become better teachers, because as Sadia said, we, like all other universities in the world, come in with PhDs that teach you nothing about teaching, and then are expected to teach. So I think there are ways in which AKU is now pioneering that, and Sadia is a very good example of helping us pioneer.
Thank you, Tashmin. That was very, very useful. This is Tashmin Kames, who leads the development network? No, what do you lead?
Yes, the networks that Sadia
Yeah,
mentions,
okay.
the networks of teaching.
I'd like to open it to the audience because you've had a lot of talking, so it's your turn to talk, and I will be silent for a very long time until you talk. Yes.
So I had a question. As you're going out and working with different communities and doing teacher development, do you have a uniform system? Recognizing that some are coming from more disadvantaged backgrounds, they could say, oh, from a top-down model, this is fantastic, how you recommend us to develop our teaching in the classroom, be more hands-on. But realistically, we have no resources. We don't have electricity. We don't have these kinds of facilities. What kind of ongoing support do you, one, offer to these kinds of settings, and two, do you have a uniform model when you bring in these kind of critical thinking seminars or skills that you're trying to offer to the other teachers?
Okay, in terms of our graduate programs, of course we have uniform system, but when you talk about this, but I think their problem is same. Even if they come from an elite system, they have problems in teaching strategies, how to use those teaching strategies. For example, there was a question on content and teaching strategies. We are not responsible to teach content, but of course you can't teach strategy in vacuum, right? You teach strategy by taking example of content. Let's take an example of science education. A person come from far-flung rural areas and a person come from a very elite school, they would have problem how to handle student interaction in the classroom, for example. I mean, you can find resources, but you don't know how to actually ask students to interact with each other. For example, a real example from a context where the teacher said, okay, you are sitting together, but use your own resources and you're not talking to each other, and that was group work. Right? If that's the definition of group work, even in an elite school or a rural school, that is where they need help. So I think that in that way, it's a uniform system in terms of graduate programs. But when you go to the lower down in the hierarchy, where certificate programs and short courses, that's actually very, very need-based. Of course, that's also need-based because we do a market survey before we do these programs. In those short courses, sometimes we do it for a particular school, for example. An elite school wants something, for example, a training in leadership and management, and do it for them. There's another school, they want this for them, for example, how to teach science with games. So we do that for them. And we are, as we were talking before this session, that we are victim of our own success. That when we did these graduate programs, I am also an outcome of that, M8 program, Master's in Teacher Education. Majority of our master's education graduates were picked up by NGOs and other institutes. So now, there was a gap. Of course, that is a success that, it's actually expanded and it's going to scale. People are working in the same country or other region, fine, it's our graduate. But what about our classroom? When we did Impact Study, there was hardly any M8 graduate in the classroom. But certificate and advanced diploma, you will see them in the classroom. Because they are in the school, they are teaching. So that was a more successful model. So through that need, we, of course, there was a lot of soul searching, and now we are actually modifying our model and going to M-Teach. M-Teach will be Masters of Teaching in specific subjects, especially for classroom teachers. They will come to us for 2 years training in a uniform model, of course, but they have to go back to the classroom for 5 years at least to teach. They cannot leave their class. You call it a cruel system or whatever, but at least we need our classrooms to have that benefit from their teachers. Hope I answer your question.
Yeah.
Okay.
Another question? Oh, sorry? Was there somebody here? Yes.
It was just a question building up on that. You mentioned that some teachers earn $15 a month or something.
10 years ago.
Okay.
Their salary is improved. It might be now $60.
Great. So I was just wondering, does the masters improve anything salary-wise for the teachers? Meaning, obviously, there's incentive for them to learn to teach better, but is there any financial incentive? And might that, weave into what you were mentioning, that they might go somewhere else in teaching?
I'm sorry, can I take my example again? Because the question you're asking, I have many examples, and instead of taking others' example, I think our own example. I came from a government school from a province bordering Afghanistan. When I came, I had done my master's in biochemistry and B.Ed, right? So I came for M.Ed, did 2 years M.Ed, and went back for 2 months, and then picked up by Dr. Tashmin to come back to work on health education project. So when I went back, there was only 200 rupees allowance you get for M.Ed. Whether you do it from the Aga Khan University, you do it from a government university, you only get the 200. And in fact, from my salary, that 200 was deducted, which I was getting for B.Ed, because there was no post vacant for me when I went back. So in terms of financial assistance, when they go back to especially people who come from government system, there is a set structure. So you can't get more than that. But as I said, they are picked up by other institutes and NGOs. There they are earning fortune. So that's why they are not in schools, because they are getting so much money there. And you can't blame them. But there is, and even our degree, we are going through an HEC recognition procedure. Their degrees are recognized, so at least they can get that 200. Otherwise, that 200 is not possible to get, because your degree is not recognized by the government.
Yes, there.
Yeah, hi. I guess a point of clarification and then a question on. One is when you were referring to elitist institutions and people not being able to go to those, not everyone's able to go to Harvard or Oxford or where it might be. There is, in essence though, a knock-on effect in the same way that you have come here, you have then gone to Pakistan. I'm hopefully trying to have an impact in Rwanda, let's say. So I take whatever knowledge base there is here from an elite institution, and I'm passing it on. Now, it may not be of the same standard that is here, but in my my imaginary pyramid in my head, that if I'm trying to have an impact on people at the bottom of the pyramid, I'm certainly raising them a notch, which has to be beneficial for society in a very broad sense. So I'm not trying to have a tiny impact at the top. At the top, I'm having an impact at the bottom, even though the people who I am having an impact on may not have the benefit of an elite institution. So I guess it was trying to better understand that from you. My question there, though, is there's a lot of talk, a discussion around teachers and the impact on teachers themselves. I'm interested to know, actually, ultimately, what we all care about is the impact on students. So what analysis have you done with the work that you're doing to have an impact on teachers, to see what impact they're having on students? So when you take a teacher or a set of teachers who are teaching a class,
yes,
having gone through your program, do you then try and measure the impact of your teaching on the people we all care about, which are the students?
Thank you so much for asking this question, where I can show off, which I've already shown off there, that we actually started measuring this impact 10 years ago. In 2006, we had that idea long ago, but we started developing tools to measure what our teachers have done in the classroom as compared to the comparison teachers who have not gone through this training, whether there's an impact. And as I've shown there is an impact on students, but we have just developed a model for science and mathematics. And we are in the process of expanding that study to a country level. But the finding, which was not the expected finding or the planned finding of the study, that how many graduates will we get actually in classrooms, especially the M8 graduates, the Masters of Education graduates. We hardly got that. But what we got in the classroom was certificate and advanced diploma. And their students from grade 6 to grade 8, that was the limitation of the study, because we only developed tool for that particular sect of the school, because there we have many trained teachers, we thought, right, according to our records. So when we measure that, we found an impact on science and mathematics in both Karachi and the northern areas. Not very big impact, but it's actually have started gaining momentum there. So we are developing those models. And now we are developing model for measuring generic skill, which is critical thinking. Whether we are developing that or not. So we are claiming, but we don't know what we are doing with that.
So just want to clarify, critical thinking amongst the teachers or critical thinking amongst the students?
Among our graduates.
Amongst your graduates?
Yes.
Ashmita, do we have anything online?
I know it's a bit quiet at the minute.
Ah, very quiet. Yes?
Hi, thanks for the presentation, it was really informative. And it sounds like you're doing some really great work as well. I was just wondering around, if you could say a bit more about the work the university does maybe with other universities in the region, maybe public universities as well. Because I'm just thinking, with it being such an elite and private institution, obviously it attracts the most talented scholars and students from the area. How does that kind of affect the ability of other universities to kind of build their own capacity and their own sustainable ways of helping their local communities as well? Do you do any work with other universities?
Okay. One smaller way is that sometimes their faculty come for us for training, for example, for professional development programs, right from PhD to short courses. So that's one way where they get that message through an individual, through a group of individuals. The other is collaborating with universities. We have some examples to work with IER, which is Institute for Educational Research around the country. For example, KPK, another province which is bordering Afghanistan from another side, not my province. We have worked 7-8 years ago to develop their faculty's capacity in research. Especially this is an example, right? Their MPhil and PhD students and their faculty who came for that 15 days training. It was only 15 days short course as part of the project. So we did develop their capacity not only in research, but there was many other programs as well, but I was not involved, so I can't speak about that. But I can speak of this research project. Recently, in December 2016, we had this collaboration with another institute, a big institute in Lahore, which is another province, which is LUMS. Now I forgot what LUMS stand for. Lahore University of Management Sciences. Thank you so much. I need the first word. Lahore University of Management Sciences. We work with them, and they have also started their School of Education. The day when we had our first event there, it was a regional round table where we had some papers. Actually, they don't have experience in teacher education. So they wanted to work together to develop that experience so we can work in future. The outcome of that we... Today, we had a meeting with Asian Development Bank who came to present us the education assessment they have done in Sindh and Punjab. So they want our input on that. And there was a kind of collaboration with them. So this is the kind of 2 examples of individuals and at university level where we work together.
Do you gain yourself? I mean, you said how you kind of develop capacity at other places and with other individuals. Is there a sort of feedback loop that helps you to sort of do better work, more relevant work, and so on? That goes back to what the colleague over there indicated, the sort of trickling down effect. If you have a stratified system, that you sort of use the sort of elite capacity to develop at the bottom of the pyramid, as you said, But I would always argue that's, of course, a justification for elite systems. The justification gets even better if you can say, well, it makes the top bit better in its own right, because what they do is more relevant and so on. So I wonder whether you had any.
Yes,
any
we have two loops two ways of getting feedback. One is indirect. Of course, you heard the voice of public, what they are saying about you. And perhaps you don't give importance to that. But when people come, we have a specific system of getting evaluation from them. So when they give evaluation, we can't say that we incorporate 100%, but of course it helps. That where there are loopholes and we need to fix that. So we work on that. Dr. Tashmin has a question. Please don't ask me, okay?
Well, my question was, I guess, building on your question and also what you showed. In terms of here we are trying to use very innovative teaching methods with our faculty, etc., and then you're trying to assess impact maybe at the subject level. Is that, and you didn't talk about assessment at all, so if we change the pedagogy without changing very didactic ways of assessing, I have a son who's just come to the UK to doing GCSEs from an American system school in Kenya, and he says to me, "Mom, you sent me here to study, not to learn. It's all about passing the paper." And I suspect that's exactly what we're facing in Pakistan as well. How do you deal with that? Because I suspect that maybe the impacts you're not seeing, say, in science or math, might not be so much that you're not making an impact, but the way it's being assessed, that doesn't reflect.
Be assessed, or
no? I mean, in terms of if we're looking at examinations, for example, outcomes of students.
I mean, examination system is always an issue, and I get very disturbed when students write in their finding chapter or the last chapter the challenges or answer of one of the question, what were the challenges in implementing that strategy. So the first one is assessment. So I asked them, get 20 other theses, do meta-analysis and see what are the assessment challenges you might want to cater for that. It's not only IED, there is another brother or sister of that, which is examination board. They are trying to bring some improvement in the assessment system in the schools which are registered with examination board. But of course, mainstream school have that issue, and that is always a double-edged sword where teachers have that issue that now we have learned this, how to do this participatory teaching, but for example, they can do it till grade 8, but when they go to 9th and 10th, that is red zone area, that is handled by the government. Even their examination system is improved than where I have gone through. For example, write a note on one of the followings, that was the question. But now they have, for example, some questions where they have to think at least, right? So there is a little bit of change, which of course we have to work on assessment. In terms of IED, we have now introduced a specialization in MPhil in assessment and evaluation as well. So let's see how much does it work. At national level, what HEC and other institutes are saying that they are trying to bring TIMSS and PISA into Pakistan as well. I don't know how is it going to help our assessment strategy, because we are not member of TIMSS or PISA. So that's our current situation, and that is certainly a challenge which we try to deal at IED at our student level to give them assignments of different nature which matches the classroom strategies. But when they go to school, till grade 8, this is their area they can try. But 9th, 10th, even if they introduce participatory strategy, they have to finish that course, they have to finish those practicals in the way it's prescribed. So it's always an issue. And thank you for bringing that, because I did not bring that. I knew you were going to ask a question. You're still not 6 yet?
Yes.
6
Yes. Sadia, one question for you, coming from a non-educational background. Are you able to make use of or take advantage of your alumni in acting as mentor, trainer, and also helping you in your research unit?
People outside the university or people in the university?
Alumni,
yeah.
So alumni, maybe outside you.
People who have graduated from your courses.
I mean, informally, don't tell it to anyone, I have been mentoring people, and that's why I am not able to publish, right? So I'm just doing that mentoring in research and teaching, and I love that. That is an important thing I'm doing.
Yes, Hubert.
Yes. So this is kind of going away from the presentation to some extent, but I want to make use of the expertise in the room to help me with something I've thought quite a bit about. So this comes from a master's dissertation that one of my students wrote a couple of years ago, and she looked at the time the sort of terror attacks and universities being targeted, education more generally being targeted by terror attacks, and she tried to get a sense in her work of the sort of implications that has on the educational process, if you like. And it was quite difficult to gain access to universities. She wanted to do interviews with people responsible for campus security, but also with academic staff to get a sense of what the impact is on their work. And she did as well as she could in the circumstances. So one of her tentative findings was that there's, of course, an impact on it, but not only in terms of universities increasing security measures and all of that. I would have expected that, but also people getting very concerned about things like freedom of speech, about academic freedom, and also the sort of what we have a bit here as well with the prevent agenda, sort of institutional actors, be it teachers, be it administrators, in a role of sort of controlling what the students get up to and so on. So very uncomfortable in a university context. So lots of problems here. And she got some indications of this happening in Pakistani universities as well. And I just wondered what your take on this was, what your observations are.
Difficult question, that how do you deal with when all, of course, classroom is laboratory for your situation around. You can't be aloof to that, sitting there and saying nothing is happening or close your eyes. Of course, all those things are happening outside, and one of the strategies could be to bring that in classroom. Once we did that, not the terror attack, but something else, and discuss it in classroom. And I have seen even schools are engaging students. For example, this Peshawar attack we have on our army public school, where many children were killed. Schools actually have programs on that, leave alone university, where they're trying to, I mean, you might see that as a superficial act, but that was something they were teaching children, some skills, that how do you respect others. That's the thing you can bring in, and it will take, of course, years to help the nation to do that, but we don't know who is doing that. But to have solidarity not only with those students, but to understand the situation they have gone through. And there were some steps which were taken at national level as well. But it is always difficult, of course. I come from a province where there was a kind of civil war, right? So there was this language. You speak Punjabi and you speak Balochi. Those who are Punjabis were killed. Our university was actually empty. Now tell me, how do we talk there? I went to do a course, 1-week workshop in Balochistan University, where I have studied. My family lives there, but I have to hide my identity. I did not tell them that I am from here, because one of my brothers, he taught in the physics department, and I did not want people to know that he is my brother, right? But on third day, when it was the 5-day course, somebody asked me, but internet, did you graduate from here? I said, yes, I will share that with you. I can't lie on the last day. And then when I go for group work in the groups, they ask me not any other question. Which language do you speak? because from language they would know that which group I am from. I said, I speak the same language as I'm speaking here. That was the answer. So that was a kind of threatened condition where I went to do that. But in our university, of course, sometimes we try to bring those situations in the classroom, but sometimes it is difficult to deal with that. So you just close your eyes on that sometimes. You know it, but you don't know it.
Interesting.
Do we have one last question? And nothing from our people abroad. They're very quiet tonight.
I know, it's 1,200 people have actually viewed the video on and off. They've dipped in and out, so it's reached 1,200 people.
Yeah, oh, well, okay. They're just, you silence them. Fine, I think we'll thank Sadia and Hubert, Sadia Bhutta, Hubert Ertl, for this closing seminar, because it's week 8 and everybody knows we live on the 8-week cycle. So it's the very final week of the seminar series, and we thank all the speakers who aren't with us tonight. But I think really it was been a brilliant, I've only been to a few, but I've loved them. I've been to 3, that's not bad. Fine, so let us thank our speakers.